Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the relationship between education, as in advanced education, the amount of people in any society who have a degree, and the extent of the encouragement for people to have a degree, and whether that relates in any way to higher rates of pay overall relative to cost of living, higher productivity in a society, lower productivity. What does it mean? How does it play out? For example, if everyone in your society had a degree, would that society perform better in economically and organisationally, and from a point of view of stability? Better quality geolegal process and rule of law, better quality outcomes, across the board. Would that, better quality government, more accountable government, would it reflect, or would everyone having a degree reflect those sort of outcomes, or would it be the opposite? Similarly, if only a very small amount of people have a degree, or nobody have a degree, would that translate into a basket case economy or society? So let's just have a little look at that. Now, there's been a study or report that I saw that Australia, I think, is the second, or jostling for first place, even at the amount of people who go on to tertiary education. It's been that way for quite some time. So this is kids who start high school and how many of them go through to get a degree. Now, it's supposed to be in Australia, it's supposed to be running at 55% currently, with the government, with federal government and state government, particularly the more left-leaning governments, wanting to get it to 65%. So they want, 6.5 every 10 kids that start high school end up with a college degree. And I'm talking about a minimum of a 3-year degree, not a diploma type degree or something, but an actual three-year university degree. And that's before you sort of throw in the masters and the PhDs and so on. So that's phenomenally high. I mean, to give you an idea, when I was graduating from high school, about 3% were getting through to university. So that shows you how just incredible the difference is. So our kids are a whole lot smarter now than they were then? I don't think so. Certainly not what I've seen. The quality of work that I've seen from people I know who've got kids at high school, or even kids going through university. I've often get asked, can I give the red pen to the thesis, or to the masters, or an essay or something like that, and I'm stunned at how fucking bad the work is. And I've marked, well, not marked, I've reviewed papers from students. Not long ago, there was a lady doing a master's, and it looked like the work of some ordinary second year, third year high school kid. I thought, there's no way she's going to pass with that. But not only did she pass, she got a distinction, which illustrates to me just how far the standards have fallen. I mean, boy, they've just plumbed the depths in terms of standards. That paper that she got a distinction for shouldn't have even. I mean, she shouldn't be at university if she's producing work like that. Certainly not doing a master's. But there's no way she should have been passed. I mean, she should have been given, a zero mark for a paper that piss poor. But anyway, she got a distinction again, illustrating how far standards have fallen. She was a straight white girl as well, so it's not that she was a black lesbian or something. But just having a look at this in Australia, then there's an unusually high tertiary education participation rate, and there's now a lot of people floating around with degrees, but somehow wage rates aren't increasing. In fact, they're falling relative to cost of living. In fact, falling overall. The average wage used to be at around the midpoint. So you'd have 50, approximately, not exactly, you'd have approximately 50% making below the average, and 50% above the average, or the midpoint. So now it's almost impossible, you think, from a sheer mathematical point of view. But now the midpoint is almost 70%. So 70% of the people actually earn less than the average wage. Now the amount of people that are being paid, and you can look at this. I mean, go on to some of the big prominent job boards and do searches on it, and you can see that 40% of the population are being paid less than half the average wage. I mean, it's quite remarkable. But the growth in jobs in the West, and certainly in Australia, in fact, there's been an explosion in low-paid jobs that are being artificially kept at a low wage, and the mass migration, of course, feeding into that. Market forces aren't driving this; it's artificial means that are doing it. Now, in terms of the amount of people with degrees, I suppose it's what sort of degrees they have. Are they all accountants or engineers or business majors, or is it all productive type degrees, or degrees that are likely to improve society and the economy and the nation in some way? Well, no. There's been the real explosion in tertiary education has been in the bullshit degrees, gender studies and these crazy black studies, white oppression studies, studies on how evil and bad white folks are. Every imaginable course that is being could be conceived to be anti-white, anti-Western. All that sort of stuff has been done, and a lot of people sign up for it. Now, it's easy. You look at these courses and say, well, the objective of the politically correct woke brigade was to create equal outcomes. That was their objective. Their objective was not to increase or raise the standard of education, make it more rigorous. I'd have preferred a situation where the rigor stayed the same, but they gave extra help. As in, after school coaching, or put on more support facilities for minorities. So if there was the black lesbian wanted to put in the extra work to be a better student, she could have the option of going to, weekend and night revision classes free of charge, even maybe with the government picking up the train fare or the bus fare or something like that, so that these people were being offered additional assistance. But instead of doing that, instead of keeping the rigor and offering to support, it was deemed pretty early on, well, these people just won't go to the weekend courses or the night courses, or they won't avail themselves of the help. So we have to sort of insert the help into the exercise or into the whole system. And we just got to say that if they get 25% in the exam, that they've passed, whereas the straight white boys going to get 50, that sort of thing. So they just lowered the standards and lowered it again, and in some universities they point blank refuse to fail any black person. That's how bad it's got. So we've got a lot of kids are being passed through high school, passed through senior high school, and then passed through into university and then gifted degrees. So you've got an army of people that are out there that haven't earned their degree and don't know shit and don't care. They've had it's been a nice social sort of thing for them at university, running around hating on white people and acting in an infantile schoolgirl manner and this sort of thing. Then that's something that maybe they enjoy and get off on and listen to endless speeches of how bad white people are. That probably gives them some sort of sense of accomplishment, perhaps. But in terms of the numbers of serious degrees, then the engineering and that sort of stuff, we're not producing any more of them, on relative to population than we were 30, 40, 50 years ago in Australia. So the growth has been in bullshit degrees. Now, at the same time, there's been this incredible growth in human resource departments, diversity and inclusion officers, and an endless and dazzling array of social engineering. I think you'd call it, the wider leftist Marxist style social engineering. There's been an utter explosion in those sort of jobs. Now, those jobs, those occupations produce nothing. They create nothing. They build nothing. They add value to nothing. They only destroy, tear down, impede, and are a dead weight around any positive activity in the community. But also there's been an inversion of jobs. I think I've mentioned before on this channel that diversity officers can be paid double what a qualified civil engineer with 5 years experience is getting paid. So there's been an artificial increase in jobs that are to do with destroying straight white males and destroying and undermining white society, of undermining the confidence that white people have in their own society, and there's been an explosion in those sort of jobs. I didn't realise this, but some people we know, some neighbour or someone living nearby, their daughter said that she might be a lesbian, and she's 14 or something like that. And I have actually seen this girl, and given how she looks, I'd say maybe that's a good option for her. She's certainly no beauty queen, but anyway, she said she might be a lesbian, and the education department mobilised like a SWAT team to come out and look after her. We'll take care of you. Anyone discriminates against you, you tell us, and we'll get them, and we'll stick it up. Any straight white boy gives you any shit, then you tell, we'll expel him, we'll kill him, we'll tear him limb from limb. Don't you take any shit from anybody. And so this hit and telling her what to do. Look, there's a women's rowing team sort of down the road there. They're all lesbians. We can get you into the rowing team, and all this sort of stuff. Now, I don't know how big that department is, but given how quickly they came out and how incredibly well resourced they are, this illustrates yet again of how many jobs that have been created that are out of the ether, that are purely politically correct jobs, woke jobs to destroy Western society type jobs. So there's been a huge increase in those jobs. And again, I'm not surprised productivity is declining if those sort of people are running around with their useless degrees, trying to spread destruction and negativity everywhere they go. Now, I think in addition to that, we've got a situation where in the West where the degrees aren't degrees of skill, the degrees of ideology. And this in turn is meaning there are more hurdles people have to jump to do anything. Instead of having to fill out one form, you have to fill out 10 forms. And instead of having to have one interview, you have to have 100 interviews, that sort of thing. And so that just slows down and retards any sort of positive productive outcome. And I think that's, these people with degrees are so officious and so bureaucratic and so snotty that they destroy everything they touch, and that's I think an issue. So I think and the final point, which is I guess an obvious one, if there's lots of degrees in certain areas, then that would necessarily devalue the meaning of the degree. So now employers believe the degree is now the minimum entry level, rather than something that used to be considered a considerable achievement, a considerable educational achievement. When I left school, if you even had a senior high school graduation diploma, if you even had that was considered back then to be an advanced education. If you had a degree on top of that, wow, holy shit. And I remember meeting people who had PhDs. The guy was some guy was a PhD in whatever it was, I can't remember now. So and I was I was still a student, and when this guy walked into the room, there was a certain sort of reverence, awe. We were all awestruck. I mean, he was a doctor, PhD. And holy fuck, this guy's at the apex of the apex. And whereas now, every black lesbian you meet's got a fucking PhD, which again indicates the extent to which the education has been devalued. And again, the point of it was to create equity. That infantile thing that the left always does, and they always fall into the same trap that if a PhD person gets a lot of respect, how do we use this to create equal outcomes? Well, I know what we'll do, says the infantile leftist. Let's give everybody a PhD, then everybody can be respected, everybody can be the same. But no, you stupid fucking morons. The point of it was that the person with their PhD was singled out because they were exceptionally bright, exceptionally hardworking students, and had achieved under a rigorous system, had achieved to the maximum level. That's why they were respected. Not because they had the PhD, but because they had earned it. And that's another thing that the PhDs aren't being earned anymore. The masters or the degrees or even the high school diplomas, for goodness sakes, they're not being earned. They're being awarded through the woke, silly system. And I'll make a final point on this: kids that can't earn a degree to save their lives, they're morons. They should never have made it out of junior high school. They're spending 2 more years at high school, senior high school, then 3 years in a degree. So they're spending 5+ years out of what otherwise would be the workforce. And they would provide a pool of cheaper labour. A 15-year-old's wages are lower than an adult's wages. So they would get, so they're not working, and they're spending their time and money in acquiring debt at university, but they're not qualified in anything when they come out, or no more qualified than they would have been because they're wave through or pass through students. So all this productivity that could have come if they'd started work, maybe as an apprenticeship or something like that, then that's lost to the economy, lost to them as well, and it's giving them an artificially inflated view of what they should be doing. So that's another aspect. So I think unless tertiary education reflects capability, which it clearly does not, certainly not in Australia or elsewhere in the West, if it doesn't reflect capability, then it is a net waste in every conceivable measure. So this is why in Australia the large number of degree holders is not translating into a richer society or a more capable society or a more productive society. You've been with Tacitus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for listening.